Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Zach, the WretchedWatchmen, bringing you a little bit of news. I wish I could say it was good news, but this is not good news by any stretch of the imagination, that's for sure. But it seems that the Hillsong founder, Brian Houston, he's deciding that it's time to step back into doing church ministry and all that stuff. Even with the past that he has, he's deciding to get back into this. And this is by no means a good thing. Not in any way, shape, or form is this a good thing. Brian Houston is somebody who he started the Hillsong brand. It was him and his father who got together and combined their churches to create the Hillsong Church, mega church uh, corporation that it is right now. And he started it with the intention of creating a giant business for money. That was his goal. It had nothing to do with spreading the gospel, had nothing to do with praising Jesus, had nothing to do with reaching new souls with the true gospel. No, it had to do with making a business decision in order to make as much money as possible. He was a businessman before. He wrote books on how to earn more money, and he had the same mindset when it came to developing Hillsong that we see today. But he just recently announced, posted out there this. He says, Bobby, that's his wife, Bobby and I are starting a weekly online ministry and church in 2024. I'm excited about building this new community. Well, I'm not excited, that's for sure. And I'm not saying these things to be funny or sarcastic or anything. I am not excited at all about this decision that he's doing it, because he has no business being in that role at all. He's unqualified for that position, and his intentions, even from the beginning, were never good. And in case you don't know, just a little history on some of this stuff. His father, Frank Houston, was basically, he was caught being a pedophile. This was his deal. If you take a look, Frank Houston was a serial pedophile. An extent of his crimes may never be known that the court hears. And this goes on after even Brian Houston himself got called into court because he was being charged with hiding his father's pedophilia. Now, he was... those charges were dismissed, or however you want to put it, and so he was not he wasn't fully charged, or he didn't receive a punishment for that. But his father, I mean, even Brian Houston doesn't deny that he was a part of that stuff. And it was his father's church and his church. They decided to combine them to create the Hillsong experience that we see today. And again, like I said, it was strictly a business move. Again, he wrote books about business and how to make more money and all these things, and he saw the opportunity that was presented to him with combining this stuff. Now, again, I said he's unfit for this position. He's unqualified for this position, and he's got a past. He's got a record. And I know the first thing people are going to say is, well, everybody sins. That's true. Everybody does sin. But when you live a lifestyle of sin, you are not fit for the position. And if we go back into some of his history, just recently, this was about 8 months ago, Hillsong's Brian Houston pleads guilty to DUI, given 6 sentences by judge. So he has a drinking problem from at least 8 months ago. But if you go back 2 years, you will see that he still continues to have that same drinking problem, because interim Hillsong leader says founder Brian Houston committed indiscretions with 2 women. He was under the influence. He was drunk at the time, and he spent an hour in a random woman's hotel room when they were on a conference tour. And nobody seems to really know what happened in there, but he was so intoxicated that he couldn't even recall some of it. He said nothing happened and all these things, but he had a drinking problem 2 years ago, and he still has a drinking problem at least 8 months ago. He continues to live that lifestyle. He never fixed that thing. He is unqualified. And why do I continue to talk about Hillsong and it being a business and all these things? Well, again, if you go through some of the money that goes through. Now, first things first, being rich, having a lot of money, there's nothing wrong with that. Some people want to take the line out of context. It says money is the root of all evil. No, it's for the love of money is the root of all types of evil. That's how it goes. So being rich and stuff is not a problem, but it's the lifestyle of utilizing this mega church, this Hillsong experience to continue to live it up. 10 luxury hotels, Hillsong leaders expense to the church. Spoiler, the cheapest is 8 grand. And that goes up to 13 grand to 16 grand to even 18 grand if you want to go through the list to stay at a hotel. Hillsong church salaries, royalties, benefits revealed 1.9 million, 1.7 million, 1.5 million, 800,000 K, 500,000 K. These are not just the top pastors. These are people like the worship director, like Brooke Liggertwood. I've talked about her, where she goes by that name when she's singing for Hillsong, but goes by a different name when she's singing for mainstream. But she stays in Hillsong because she gets paid a ridiculous amount of money because of the music stuff that's going on with that. I'll get into that in a second. Countdown, top 10 most expensive meals Brian and Bobby Houston expense to the church. Number 4 is 2 grand, 2.4 grand. Well, that gets even worse from there because there's things that go up to 10 grand and all that stuff for a meal, for meals going out to dinner. And then report Hillsong Foundation. Not only do they take all that money and live their wonderful, lavish lifestyles from all of that, but then they say they're going to do things for charity and then just take the money and run. Hillsong Foundation raised 21 million for charities, but only gave them 1% of the money. They raised 21 million for 4 charities, and each charity got roughly 1% of that 21 million. Where did the rest of it go? I don't know. I wonder. If you've been around this channel, if you've heard me talk, you know that I am adamant against anything Hillsong. That includes listening to their preaching, going to any of their events, utilizing their music, or even listening to their music. Now, there's a spiritual element to the music that I'm not going to necessarily get into on this, but when it comes to financing these things, when you use the Hillsong music or Elevation Bethel, these churches' music in your church, you have to pay for a CCLI license. You keep tabs of how many times you sing their music, and then at the end, you write a check, and these groups get paid all this money. So I just showed, the salaries of some of these people. The Hillsong director gets like $1.5 million. Well, all that money while you're singing these songs in church are going to Hillsong to pay for their wonderful, lavish lifestyles, to pay for $16,000 hotel expenses and $8,000 dinners and all the traveling and all this and that. And they say that that's going to the charities, but they get what, 4%? The 4 charities got 4% of that 21 million. When you're using that music that everybody loves so much, you're paying for their lifestyle. You're not paying to get the gospel out, because Hillsong does not preach the correct gospel. They preach a false gospel. So that money is going towards that. It's going towards their hotels and their travels and their expenses. It's going towards huge conferences where false teachers like TD Jakes and all these other ones get paid like $1 million to speak there. It's a business. That's what he created Hillsong to be. Why is paying all this money to sing these radio songs that hold no value whatsoever? Why is that so important? Do you not care what happens afterwards? Okay, I'll put it in this perspective, because this Hillsong's pretty much like an Italian mafia where it's all about money and whatnot. That's basically what it is. So if the Italian mafia themselves, say it was the Godfather family that was writing these worship songs, if the lyrics were 100% biblical, 100% biblical, but you knew the money was going to mobsters, going to the Italian mafia, would you still use that music in your church? If the answer is no, which is the correct answer, then you shouldn't be using Hillsong in your church either, because it's pretty much the same thing. It's going towards lifestyle and preaching a false gospel. You still don't believe me on that? So don't blame me on that. Let's take a trip back to 2018. Now, this is Hillsong Church, Sweden. Remember, it's not just one, it's a whole thing across the globe. Hillsong Church, Sweden. This is from their 2018 Christmas special. This is what your money is paying for. Check this out.
Kiki, do you love me? Are you riding? Say you never ever leave from beside me. Cause I want you, and I need you, and I'm down for you always. Kiki, do you love me? Are you riding? Say you never ever leave from beside me. Cause I want you, and I need you, and I'm down for you always.
That's from a Christmas special from Hillsong Church. If you don't see it, that was Hinduism. Because the figure that they made where everybody's stacked up and they had all the arms and stuff going out, that's representation of the Hindu goddess Durga. If you don't believe me, here's the Hindu goddess Durga. It's the woman with all the different arms. And that's exactly the same thing that they were doing. Goddess of protection, strength, motherhood, destruction, and war. That's a Hillsong Church representing Hinduism in there. Guess who oversees that? Brian Houston. He was the top guy. He oversees all the different church campuses out there. He makes sure everything is running properly. They're putting on a show of Hinduism at their 2018 Christmas special. Your money that your church pays them to sing their songs in your church funded that. Think about that for a second. Is singing Oceans and some of these other songs worth that? Because that's what you're paying for. You singing that song pays for that. When you listen to their music on YouTube and Spotify, they get paid for that. It funds stuff like that. It funds stuff like all their trips and their hotels and their cruises and their jets and their dinners and all these things that cost $8,000, $9,000, $10,000, $10,000, $11,000, $12,000, $13,000, up to $20,000, $22,000 per thing. This isn't just once. This isn't just twice. This isn't once a year. This is multiple times a year. Because you want to hear their song so bad. That's what you're doing. And Brian Houston's going to go ahead and start a new ministry in a new church. Now, he's not liked so much in the Australian and New Zealand area. Because of all the things that he's done. Those were just a couple of headlines that I showed you. There's some other stuff that he's done as well. But he's not so well liked there. You know where he is liked, though? America. Looks like he's coming here to join his fellow heretics of Bill Johnson and Stephen Furtick of Elevation and Bethel. Guys, when I talk about stuff like this, people still get defensive about music because it has an enchantment on them. And I don't use the word enchantment as just kind of an adjective to kind of describe this. No, it has a literal enchantment on there because it's built to have that. It wants you to compromise on things like funding people like Brian Houston and Hillsong that worship Hindus and go on $22,000 luxury trips because it wants you to listen to that song because you want it so bad. Makes you feel good, right? Makes you feel good? That's mystery religion. That's the seductress. Makes you drunk with fornication. It's built like that for a reason, specifically. I know. I've been there. I helped write some of this stuff. Take my warning seriously. Stop funding people like Brian Houston and Bill Johnson and Stephen Furtick. Stop supporting heretics who are unqualified and unfit to hold the position of a pastor, to even hold the title. They're not qualified for it. And stop supporting these groups that is clearly built as a business and where mystery religion runs it, just like we saw with the Hinduism in the 2018 Christmas special, Hillsong Sweden. Brian Houston looks like he's coming back. I warn you, do not support that man. Don't even entertain the idea of anything that he's going to offer in your mind. Avoid him at all costs. And please, I plead with you, avoid the last place that he created. This satanic cesspool of greed and lust and mystery religion that is Hillsong. Again, I don't take this lightly. I really don't. The greatest danger to us as Christians, to us as the church, is not the government. It's not the technology. It's not the censorship or the surveillance or anything like that. It's groups like Hillsong Bethel and Elevation, Passion City, Maverick City Music, and others. It's people like Brian Houston, Bill Johnson, Stephen Furtick, Louis Giglio, and people like that. They are the greatest enemy to Jesus Christ because they are using the name of Jesus Christ for their own personal benefit and to spread a false gospel that's going to send people to hell. You know why they're able to do that? Because they are funded by churches who sing their songs every Sunday in church. Maybe it's time to dust off the old hymnal that's been stacked in your church attic for the past 10 years. Maybe it's time to go back to Grandma's church. You afraid of losing some numbers because it's not as entertaining? I think it's worth it. Brian Houston, we don't want you back. Go away.